Hello everyone, this is Shenshika Weaver, and today I want to do something a little bit special. We have Sean here, and that's user Sane121 on the site, you'll recognize. He's a pretty contributor to the site, always commenting and helping people out. So I want to do something special here, and I want to critique his latest test, or his first test actually. And I already informed Sean that I was going to be hypercritical and do this critique every little bit. I think that will help everyone see some of the things we look for here. Now, to start off with, one, simply the act of putting this together and putting a test online. Sean put this up on YouTube so the world can see it, like a few other people have done, like Jeremiah and Sam. Some other people have done that too, and I know that takes guts to do. You're putting yourself out there for critique, but it's also a fantastic thing. It helps everyone out. So I'm very proud of these for people for doing that, and also very proud for and I'm also proud to have students on here that work as hard as Sean do, and I know there's a number of students that are just fantastic, disciplined, and have the drive to do this. And let me remind you that that's actually what this is all about. It's my opinion that the world of martial arts is somewhat broken, and that the old ways of the hard work and discipline and drive that it took to get through them has been lost in at least our culture here, and probably in other cultures too. So one of the main reasons we put this online is that we can get it out to, you know, thousands and thousands of people, and we figure that maybe there's 1 in 1,000 people that are going to come through and be the one to have the drive that's necessary to go through this. And I think my statistics are pretty right. We've got 20,000 people on the site, and I would say, you know, 1 out of 1,000, maybe a fair guess. We've already had 5 or 6 show their faces, raise their hands, and say that they are one of those people. And I would imagine that there's probably 2, 3, 4 times as many people who are actually out there who have not raised their hand yet. So I think our numbers are good here, and I think we're achieving what we need to achieve. Now, another thing, this is all housekeeping, and I think this is important, is that this is, I don't personally think that a person can really develop their martial arts the best simply from watching videos. And fortunately, we have much more than that. We have what is typically called a MOOC, and that stands for Massive Open Online Classroom. And as far as I know, we are the only martial arts MOOC in existence, so we're paving the way. And the way MOOCs work, I've taken a few of them myself and enjoy them as a learning environment. The way they work is student interactivity, students helping each other out, and a lot of times students actually participating in the grading. Now obviously I don't have the time to handle 20,000 grades here, but with some help from the community, I think we can make it work. The interactivity is a critical part of it. Part of that is learning about your own body awareness. As we'll see, body awareness and what's called proprioception, or the concept of your body in space, is super critical to understanding this. And so that's what we want to get going here, is more interactivity. I think this video hopefully will be an example of things to look for. And the other students, as they develop their skills, will learn to look at each other and say, you know, be able to point the important critical things out. So that's why I'm going to do this very comprehensive look at it, and so people can learn from that. And we'll have some other opportunities to learn how to critique and what the things that are to watch for in this yellow belt material. And then keep in mind, it all changes to completely different concepts at Orange. Yellow belt is simply one of the beasts and just scratching the surface in that beast. And Shoshu is extremely in-depth art, extremely sophisticated. So this is kind of, this belt is kind of like, I think of it as standing at the doorway to get into the other stuff. We want to teach, and we want to get this material out there to people, but we do have to maintain the material, and the way we do that is we only teach what a student is ready for. So the only thing holding us back is, I personally won't hold the art back. I want to give it as much as possible, but the only thing that holds that art back is actually what students are ready for. So the more we can do to get people advanced and ready, and more built up and more better understandings of Shoshu, then of course the more we can put out there, the more teaching we can give. So that's our goal. How can we make this system as much just like you were in the studio? This feedback thing can do that. Obviously some of this is not in real time, but that has its detriments, but it also has its benefits. For example, anybody can come back and refer to this video and learn from it. So anyway, moving on. Again, the putting this video up there really shows the ability to accept criticism, which is not fun, but is necessary. And it reminds you that that's also kind of that is not kind of, but is a personal development thing. We want to spur growth in each other. So Sean here is a certain type of student, and all types of students have let's see, benefits and things to have problems with. And the type of student Sean is very disciplined, a lot of drive, and of course those are all wonderful traits. But the thing that is important when we have those traits is that we stay on him hard, because with that much drive to practice, with as much practice as it can, if we let things slip through the cracks, then those things get practiced in really hard. And it's a lot harder to take a mistake out that has been practiced in later on. If you let it slip and go by, then it just gets deeper and deeper ingrained. And then later on it becomes very difficult to take out. So because of the amount of practice that Sean does, it's very important with this type of student that we are super critical. Otherwise, it just, we got to get on it now, because he is actually, it's the problem of being such a good student. But it's a good problem, so that's all good. So, learning Shoshu, and also the understanding how to look at others and how to see what the most critical things are, what are the details that are most important. Dashu, when he was alive, it was amazing. He would walk into the studio, and typically there had been an instructor that had maybe been working with a student for months, and just the student couldn't get this detail over and over, and it was frustrating the instructor, and it was frustrating the student. And Dashu would walk by, and usually in 3 words or less could fix it. And it was almost like he was sprinkling pixie dust. The student all of a sudden got it. The student gave the instructor this look like, why didn't you tell me that? Now, of course, the instructor probably had maybe 100 times, but didn't get it across in the right way or whatever. Or maybe the instructor was not quite seeing what Dashfu did. And that's an ability that develops over a long time. The ability to really see where the core problems are, because a person can work on and try and fix what I would call more of a symptom than rather the core problem, and it's hard to fix the symptom when something else is causing it. And we give you an analogy of, if you have a car that's maybe backfiring, somebody who's experienced in working on cars and has many years of experience will know that maybe that's a fouled spark plug, or that's a you know, a spark plug wire, or there's a camshaft lobe that's worn down, or something like that. And a lot of times, even just by ear, that person with the experience can go right and pinpoint where the exact problem is. And now, if you imagine somebody who doesn't know, you know, maybe they think that the tailpipe is the problem, and they could be trying to fix up that tailpipe over and over, and they can do that all they want, and it just isn't going to fix a car. Right? It's kind of a silly analogy, but it's that's kind of the idea. And so, as skills develop of seeing this stuff, you learn to kind of pinpoint what the problem is, and most people will see the problem about 3 steps out from where it really was. And that's why Joshua was so good at fixing things, and he could see the problem where it was starting, not where it came and became very highly visible. And so that's the kind of skills we want to develop. And so anyway, onward here, I'm going to start this video, and we're going to watch Sean's first technique, and then we are going to critique it here. So here we go.
Inward defense.
Okay, hit the pause button, and if I can just back this up just a hair. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go frame by frame here. So here we go. Now, so first thing here is, the first thing that I would really point out here is the cover hand. Now what we want is this to not be coming up back here, but we want it to be coming up in front of the body, and we also want the hand to be coming up in front of the body. Now both of those, and by the way, you guys are going to see my awesome graphic skills going on here. Actually, fingers shouldn't be apart, should they? So I shouldn't be drawing that. These things should be coming up before the body motion. So you notice it's already starting to take a step here. The hands aren't up. So this should happen first. The wrist should go up here to eye level there, and this should go up to, you know, where the tips of his fingers are about here. That's the first motion there. So first thing, hands up first, and they want to block the picture frame before you really start in. The hands have got to get in there first. So continuing on here. Alright, so notice that right here, if I can get this to, there we go. We're starting to get a little bit of a lean. Okay, we want this to be, oops, that's not straight up and down here. Okay, so no lean at all. The foot's leading the way. We want the center line to lead the way. And again, the cover hand's too far back, and this should be out in front here too. So moving on. All right, so right about here is what I'm seeing as the impact of the block here. So we want this edge turned, if you can visualize, towards where your face is looking from the screen here. We want the wrist about that high and a 3/4 extension here. So there's the wrist, there's the hand. Again, my awesome drawing skills. And oh, thumb hanging out, better watch for that. And of course this should be about there, which we already mentioned. Now let's talk about the stance here. So first thing is, at this point when this block is hitting, should be hitting a horse stance. And you can see kind of going towards a hard bow here, kind of in between. So this knee right here is about the right amount of bentness. That's straight up and down. If you draw a line from the knees and down to the toes, that's pretty good, except this foot should be about turned in like so. So we don't want that turned out this way. Now, this turning this foot in is a magic thing. You turn this foot in, that will bring the hip in, pointing in this direction too, and the hip power will bring the hand power. The foot is connected to the hip is connected to the hand, sort of thing. So what really working on this here, just making sure to turn that foot in will cause everything all the way up to turn in and create power. And so that's where you want to put your focus. Proprioception, this idea, when you're first learning, you tend to think, what are my hands doing? And your concentration, your brain going on here, is thinking about this, or maybe thinking about this guy over here, right? And really, you do have to think about this guy over here. That's important. But you also have to think about him in relation to you. And that means the openings here. We block possibilities. So you want to start to become aware of this area here. If a guy's throwing a right punch, then there's a possibility that that right punch can try to power through, or if this hit it at the elbow, that it would bend around and hit him. And so what that means is there's an area in here that needs to be blocked with not only this hand, but this hand. So if you're thinking about the areas, block my face rather than block the punch, then that will tend to fix these things rather than thinking about the technique. Now, that's a lot to expect from somebody on their first belt. I cannot expect that. But start to really think about how you use the brain in here to think about the areas that are being covered. That's why we use terms like picture frame and that sort of thing. So moving on, again, this should be a horse. So this should look about, oh, that's not very good, about like there, here. So we don't want this straight knee here. We want that horse stance. And that's about the width for the horse stance there. Should have this kind of house-like look where this goes straight up and down and then there. So, and as a beginner stances, we tend to go quite a bit wider, and that's okay because we're learning the stances, we're getting a feel for those. Later on, they can tighten up to whatever's appropriate for the moment. But wide stances at this time, that's pretty good. And I do see that Sean has actually straightened up his back some by this point. So he's corrected that from where it was, but that means he had to, the correction will make a wobble in there. So he has fixed it here, but early on it was there. So anyway, moving on here. Sorry, Sean, about being so critical, but I hate to say it's for your own good. So again, here, this should be a horse stance. And heel maybe getting light there, I'm not too sure. But the weight is, might not, I don't know on that one. Again, foot's, turned in, as we already mentioned, that would still be that way. This would still be our horse stance, and this is still out in front. So on the block, you have a horse stance. On the chop, you have a horse stance. But the chop horse stance, you want to be a little bit wider because you need that transfer of center line to create power for the chop. You don't need much. You can transfer very, very small amounts and create lots of power. So if you'd add a horse there, then a horse would go there. So he is looking forward here. That's good, visualizing his opponent. And I will say that Sean has got some great hard bows. So very, very pleased with that. So moving on. All right, now there's lots of good things going on here. So got some good alignment here, fingers slightly bent, that's good. This hand in bear motion, we should probably take that hand and pull it back to here, okay? Because think about that, if you're driving this in, if this guy's here, his body's now something bent like that, right? And there's a solar plexus shot here that's becoming open. So this hand here should be down here just in case he wants to go bam right there. Now we don't do that in the technique, but we call that magic hands, and magic hands is a matter of preparing the hand. The hands know where the next target's going to be, so this gets ready before the target opens up. Now in this technique we don't do that target, but that doesn't matter. This hand gets trained to say, hey, that's going to be my next target. I'm going to get ready for it. So this right here is something we very commonly see. That heel we want firmly planted. And if you draw a line, if you imagine this heel was down here on the ground, if you draw a line from here to here, that is our line of power there. Okay, that's what's going to give the reinforcement. When this comes up, that makes that break. The bones are no longer sitting on the ground. Josh used to talk about this as being, it can only go one way. So pushing, one thing you think about is instead of thinking about trying to create power here, try to create power going this way. And as in my experience, the earth has never moved for pushing down on it, at least not in a measurable way. So if you just simply think about pushing down in this direction, then the energy has to go in this direction. So, but when we think about the energy going in this direction, we tend to lift this heel and lose this connection with the earth. So this right here, pretty dead on. That's one thing I really like Sean's hard bows here, is that is exactly right. If you drop that plumb bob down, it hits right in the middle of the knuckles there. And that gives us about a 45-degree angle on this. Now I saw in Sean's earlier video that he was going a little bit past this, but right on this one he is dead on with that 45. So there we go, good. Okay, so you see the foot is coming up. Now, had the heel been on the ground, then you would really need to push with the toes to get this up off the ground. That's a skill in itself. But with the heel already up, it causes more of a pull. So if the heel's on the ground, then you can again work on pushing more. And let's see, pretty good tuck. Hard to see that, but his feet were tucked. You can see that the toes are starting to curve forward here. And it's actually a little bit early for that. If you could just hold that back a little bit longer, not much, but a little bit longer, it's going to get more snap in that. And then this should be kind of starting to naturally come back. But it's looking really looking good. I'm being, like I said, pretty critical here. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Little overextension right here on the knee. So this should go to about that extension, 3/4 extension on the knee, and that's it. So what you actually want to get is the knee up here and then the foot down like so, and that's going to allow that swing to come in tighter. When you have an extended leg, the swing is a little longer, and if you really visualize where that opponent was, he was actually about here. So the tighter you can get that in, the more likely you are to get in that snap kick. Now if you don't get snap kick in and you're doing it right, the knee will hit. So it doesn't really matter, but what matters is that you are trying to drive that snap kick up and get that knee up nice and tight to keep things really close. And again, this should be down in there. So anyway, very good, very good. So here we go. Looking pretty good there. A little overextension on the knee again. Nice. This is something I like a lot here, is that notice how tight the return was. That is actually awesome. Something I don't see very much. Usually you'll see this kind of swing down that way in a beginner. But this tight load brings him back to center, which would give him the ability to go anywhere he wants. Now it looks like it is swinging out to the side a little bit, so we're going to watch that and bring it in tight to the other knee. But the knee is loaded tight, and that's really great. So right here, foot's reaching out a little bit there. We want the body to be starting to shift back, so our weight distribution is about 50-50 there. But There we go. So see that foot sets down and then transfer onto it. Ideally, see that little transfer after the foot. Ideally, that transfer would be happening as the foot was still in the air. But again, not anything I would actually be expecting. Okay, here we have, notice on his cover out that this is becoming a little bit straight right here. So his body motion when he's pushing off, and I think he did push off the ground, so that's really good. His body motion's going a little bit up. So if this leg bends a little bit as he comes back in his cover out, that'll accept the weight and it'll keep him in a drive position, and it'll help keep this back straight here and this head back also too. So looking good. And I don't think he has enough room here in his kitchen to get a more than a cover out here. But yeah, we want to work on getting that back straight and getting that head out of the fight there in the cover out. Work on center line. The one thing you can do is get with a partner and grab each other's hands and pull. So drive back in your cover outs and get that partner to give some resistance. And that'll help. Because when you have the resistance, you will feel the off center. So that was really nice. All right, now we're going to hit play and see the next one. And it goes on the same side. Excellent, good. Okay, we'll move on here. Outward defense. Okay, so outward defense, here, if I can back that up just a hair. Hopefully we didn't freeze. Okay, I'm going to pause the video here. Okay, so we're back here. Hopefully this continues to work. Okay, so we're going into outward defense. Okay, that one good. This cover hand's coming up quickly. This is good. Got a little bit of a lean there. Now, outward defense, this is actually a tight block here. So what we want is outward defense, and you can play with this in different ways. It's kind of like the guy is tight in there and he really throws in a tight hooking punch, and it's a sneaky one. So the reason we're moving back is to lead him in, and our block will hook onto that punch. If he'd been throwing a wide punch, then we would probably move in the other direction. And so with the tight punch, we don't want to extend this out here. We want this to be actually right at about half extension. And what will happen is the opponent's punch will wrap around this, and then as you move back, it will pull him off center. So that's what we're looking for there. Really sophisticated technique in that you have to become aware of this space behind you, where you're going. You have to become aware of your opponent. You have to become aware of what's really difficult is the space in between you. And as you move back, you want to keep this space here equal. Or consistent as you move back. And then that foot hits the ground and you change directions really rapidly. That's how a lot of times you'll get the advantage on your opponent, is by kind of moving with him and then very quickly changing that. So patterning him and then changing that pattern real quickly. So half extension on that block and continue going here. Right, so that would, he's pulling it in. Yeah, this again being bare, this punch here being pulled back, it not only readies it, but the pull energy you're going to get here is going to get push energy here. So the two work in juxtaposition from each other, they're opposing each other. And then what you want to get is that pull will also help square these hips up to the opponent. This back leg you want that to be giving right now. You want it to be starting to bend and accepting the weight of the body. When this becomes straight, and it's not perfectly straight there, so good, we're not totally off, but I would like to see it bend just a little bit more. What happens when this starts to give and accept the weight is the hips will rock underneath, and that'll create an alignment and a power going forward. So you want that knee to have that bend there. If it becomes straight, a problem here is that if this guy has a lot of energy coming in, then that energy can just knock you right over there. Okay, so being able to get that foot into a power position to snap back there. So moving on here. Got a nice hip rock in there. That's really good. Again, thinking about impact, the guy's going to be more in here is where his groin is. But this is a really nice rock of the hips I like here. Little hunch in the shoulders, and that will prohibit the hips from having as much power as possible. So if this could straighten out in there, then these hips will actually have more rock and more power. And that's going to start with the head. You bring that head back to here where it should be. And then this straight alignment will allow energy to come more this way. So overall, really great. I like the hip rock and that's going on there. But we can actually add some power to it right there by straightening up those shoulders. So here we go. Again, another nice tight load in his kick. Okay. However, if we visualize, the guy's groin was there. He just got kicked. He was standing there, right? But now he got kicked. His head is coming down here pretty quickly, right? So we would make impact somewhere about here. Really tight with this. So that means this punch has got to be here ready to go, ready to hit that there. If it's not, you know, it's pointed down a lot, over here is where a lot of people will have it, and it's just not going to get up in there. It's got to be there ready to aim so that right as that kick returns, this fires. So opponent is a lot closer than what we're seeing here. And that is really, really common, and something that you want to watch for is visualizing where is this guy at. So he should be about, you know, like so, bent over right in here. And I think Sean's going to put him a lot farther out here. So there we got the back, bent back. There we go. Good. So because of how tight this guy was, then again, this should be a horse, and he's been a little past a horse, seeing his opponent a little bit far. Cover hand should be a little bit more out there, but doing good here. So, and again, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to hit play here and go on. And pretty much the same thing on the other side. A little looking down there, Sean. Keep those eyes up. Okay, looking down. Now I know Sean is on camera here. The camera kind of changes that, and you're like, oh, a little nervous about things. But otherwise, Sean has had his eyes up pretty good. But I'll just point that out. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay.
Technique.
Pretty good there. Work on getting these heels out, both of these heels out, and that'll push these knees out. And then when you pull up on this guy's neck here, you want to think about kind of like you're doing a chin up. So you pull your back up straight when you pull down here. And again, the guy's head would be about here, so visualizing a little bit shorter than he would be. There.
Outward defense.
I think my video stopped. Okay, so we're back here. I got this video working again, and we've got famous 4 drill. Okay, so that was pretty good, and a lot of forward centerline motion. The famous 4 drill is not really a fighting technique, but it is really just to get you moving forward as much as you want. What you want on each strike here is for that front foot to move. So we can see here, oh, it is moving good. When we look here, we saw that foot's moving a little, it's off the ground there. That's good, that's what we want. Had a little bit of a weight shift back to do it. You want to move that without the weight without picking your weight up or moving back. But generally looking pretty good there. So there we go. Now the foot's landing a little bit before that first strike. Now that should have been a back knuckle strike there, that first one. Now doing it fast, what we want to see is the foot actually floating through all 3 of the first strikes. So that's down, or at least transferring forward. And we do have transfer forward there, so that's good. And there, that last punch wasn't quite ready in that pullback position. So it's that same thing of what's called chambering. We don't chamber in most of the beats, but in the bear motion here we do. So getting those ready. And you can see right here we've got a little lean forward. Now, if you go back in that video, which I won't do right now, you would have seen, I had noticed that the lean forward started right back in the beginning. And right here it's starting to get big. Actually, I will go back. Tell you what, I will go back on this. And we can point out when does that lean actually start. Holding the hand up a little high there in the beginning for that fighting stance. So right there is where it's starting. And you can see it's not causing much of a problem here, but that lean tends to get better until right here. Now we've got a weight distribution of the head too far forward. So you can see it started earlier and kind of progresses there. Now this is pretty good. At this point we're seeing again this front or the supporting leg starting to straighten out a bit there. I'm going to try and keep that bent as much as possible, and that's going to create more forward motion rather than the upward motion. And then as this roundhouse kick is fired, I'm going to get these hands switched over. So this one should be out here in front, and this one should be a cover hand in here. And then what I would do is, instead of spinning all the way around, set that foot right here, right down, right forward, right down in here, instead of spinning around. I know you get a lot of momentum carried around, but try to set forward rather than continuing all the way through there. So you get that ball, that foot pointed in there. So looking good. So yeah, we don't want that back turned there. Okay, let's hit the play here. I think we're going to see it on the other side.
Wrist grabber technique.
Oh, no, we're in the wrist grab technique. Okay, let's look at this one a little closer. Okay, so we have wrist grab technique, and that's good. He rolls the wrist to the inside really well. Tuck that elbow in a little tighter would help. Hand flicks down right about eye level. That's pretty good. Now I want that hand in there a little sooner than the foot. So foot's already moving down here. I want to hold that back and get the hand to drive out there first before the foot starts. Weapon before body. There we go. So got a little lean back in here, and the hands up. We want to keep that at eye level, and again, cover hand out in front. So starting to see a few of the same things here. Repeated. Okay, so that was pretty good. Got some body drop going on that hammer fist, and that's a good thing. Actually, probably a little bit too much. So for a hammer fist to the groin, you actually don't need to bend your legs a whole bunch, because it starts to get you too low to where this, groin height's about here. This is actually starting to drop below, and the hammer fist will start to come up when the body's going down. So those two won't match if you're dropping a little too low on that. So want to watch that, but definitely good that he's understanding that drop is creating the power there. The elbow can stay tucked down on this here. So the elbow could be down in here and snapping that back knuckle up ahead of it. And again, cover hand there. So here we go. Opponent's probably not quite that far away. And here we're seeing back here, can't see it in the video, but I can tell from body position that that heel is starting to come up there again. So the same exact as on the first technique. You'll start to see that, if you can look at this, looks exactly the same as what happened on inward defense, which is why we've got these techniques. So have a lot of these common principles, so you get practice in these and develop these common principles. There we can see the knee coming out to the side here, which we couldn't see from that other camera angle. We want that going straight back in here. We don't want to bring it out to the side. So now that I've seen this on two techniques, I'd say that that's probably a habit that Sean's starting to build in, and we want to get rid of that and almost rub the knees together as it comes back. So glad we caught that right there. There we go. Good. Okay. Kind of a little up and down motion there, and we want to keep that head level will stay the same, which keeps us legs bent and driving rather than bouncing there.
Hammer lock.
Okay, hammer lock here. Get to it.
Hammer lock.
Okay, again, a little bit lean. We're starting to see that there's a tendency consistently, Sean's moving that foot in, but leaving the body behind here. So we got a little bit of a lean there. So starting to see that as a habit. We want to get that elbow on hammerlock fired over the head and down before there's actually any body motion there. So it's got to get over the top and down, so that'll trap the opponent's arm out of the way before stepping. Otherwise, this lean is going to kill you, because that guy's body's weight is against you there. So you got to get that weapon ahead, smash him in the nose, which is going to give you a little bit of clearance, and center line straight up and down. And a little bounce. Notice we're coming back up before going down. That should be one consistent drop. So the elbow, your body is dropping. It just continues to drop on the hammer fist, and it doesn't go down, up, down. Just one consistent thing, and that'll take some time out of there. So now we see, as we're starting around, notice what's leading the way here. The head. Okay, this hand should actually be up here, And if you throw the hand around first, you'll find that it'll start your body whipping, and that hand motion will lead the way and will get everything coming around behind it. The other thing that should be happening here is before you start to turn is you actually want this hand to be out here. So this hand is starting the whip. It's real common to start your turn first and then do the whip of this hand, and you actually want to do it the other way. Weapon before body. Just always think weapon before body. You're going to move your hands first. So this starts the way, then the body would start to step. There we go. We got a little lean. And that motion, notice how the foot kind of swung from here and around in a circle. What you want it to do is to come across here in a cross-stepping motion. Now, I know we have not looked at cross steps a whole bunch in any of the material. It's in your cover outs, and if you can think of a cover out going the other way, cover forward, that would be that motion. So the opponent's body was here, but when you do this whip, his head is going to go over here, putting his ribs around here. So that means you're going to set down about here, which will align the next part to where the guy's ribs are. And we will, oops, I should have left that. Oh, draw that back in, because it should set down about there. There's the opponent's head, there's his body, something like that, his ribs over there. So, oh, Sean actually overdoes it. So it's a little bit too far around there. And now we should be sitting in a horse stance there. And yeah, drive to that horse and then snap the snap kick. Now you'll see that this hand here should be up here as a cover hand. And what happens if it is in the cover hand position, on the return of the kick, what happens is that the cover hand will start the next weapon. So Sean didn't return his kick there, so he should have gone out, and then the hips return to center, and then drive in with that cover hand into the arm bar. So we want a nice return of the hips. And there's a mat drill you'll find in some of the classes where it's just snap, kick, return, drive to a horse, snap, kick, return, drive to a horse. And I would really recommend that as something you do on a pretty regular basis, and that'll help right here. There you go, this is good. All right, leaning over a little bit there. We actually want this hand to be down, actually it's an elbow, should be down in here, and the hips straight up and down, back straight up and down here. Excuse my cough. Okay, pretty good though. And we'll continue on.
Figure 4 technique.
Okay, so pretty good here. Let me see. If it does it on the other side, we'll pick that apart. Oh, that was one. Okay, I'm having a little trouble rewinding here. Maybe we'll get it. No, I gotta stop again. Okay, so I got figure 4 back up here. Got his head turned to the side. This is good. Hands coming up. This is good. I can see what he's grabbing there. That's good. Little wind up. Alright, so what I want to see here is the head actually making a bigger circle down into this area. That will take your opponent's balance because he can't reach in that direction. So instead of spinning in place, this circle makes a big circle and then it'll come back up. There we go. And then right here we should be hitting all the way to that hard bow. You need to hit this hard bow here, and you need to square up the hips, and what that'll do is it'll allow you to, by tucking the rear end underneath and hitting a good hard bow, that will straighten up this back, because you had to bend your back to get the head to come around. But you got to get it back straight up, and you use your legs and your hips to snap that back and head back up into position and give you a really strong position. And that'll put pressure down on your opponent's arms here as you do that. Go, same overextension on that kick. Consistently seeing the same thing there. There you go, a little lean coming back on that hard bow. On that. Okay, I think that's all the techniques, and let's run through chops and hand weapons. Sean's exhibiting a little nervousness here.
Chop.
Good. Thumbs out a little bit there. Again, we want to be hitting a hard bow, or I'm sorry, a horse stance here, not overextending this back leg. And the cover hand's looking better on this one. Maybe a little bit more out, but not bad. And the hip should be turned in. Same details we talked about. Turn this toe in, that'll turn the hip in. That'll align that. So that same stuff. Go.
Hammer fist.
That's pretty good. Usually we'll do those three hammer fists as individual, one, and then the other, you know, not as one thing, but do them just as single weapons. Now that I know we do not actually have up on the site anywhere yet. We will. So there's no way Sean could have known that, but he figured out something to do here, so that's really awesome.
Ram's head punch.
Really nice. There we're seeing some really Sean's real strong points. Those weapons had good snap into them, good amount of hip turn, little tiny bit of shoulder in there, so you want to pull that shoulder back, keep that perfectly straight, but really snappy and some awesomeness there. Yeah, those are great. Those are really, really good.
Rolling reverse.
Little on those, the wrist was a little bit out of alignment, so we want to watch those. Okay, here's something there. On the rolling reverse punch, to be honest, the rolling reverse punch is hard to do pure bear. It's just really not actually a bear weapon, but we want to get it started in here and get the motion. But what you want to watch here is don't drop while you're punching up. You'll start to really get into this more in your orange belt, where you're going to be rolling the hips and getting the proper tiger motion for a rolling reverse punch. You can do it bare. It'll work while driving to a hard bow. In the bear, it's a little bit different than a typical tiger rolling reverse punch. But just watch that you don't drop while you're punching. It's okay to drop before and then drive back up, but while the punch is making impact, you don't want the body to be dropping. But we'll give a little on that, because it's kind of fitting a square peg in a round hole there.
Heel palm.
Good, very nice, very nice. A little more hip turn on these, driving to a horse there. Now if you're doing with the other hand, we would drive to a hard bow. But since he opted to use the front hand, that would be a horse stance there. And we have some kicks.
Snap kick.
watch. Sean's got a really good presentation on that snap kick. The kick is nice and tucked. Could push off the ground a little bit. One thing I do see is it's before he kicks there, his weight is shifted forward. So Sean, I want you to work on starting from an absolutely 50-50 weight distribution for that kick. Don't lead the kick with your body. But you got a lot of potential there. See, it's leaded a little bit there. Same thing there. Bodies. So just fix that starting position.
Roundhouse kick.
Here you go. We talked about don't spin too far around on the roundhouse.
Knife edge.
The knife edge. Probably need to cover this somewhere more on the site. The knife edges that we'll do. Now, remind you, any kick can be done out of any different beast. So you may see knife edges somewhere without hip turn. But the typical knife edge that we're going to do at the yellow belt level is going to have a hip turn all the way through. But you may have picked that up somewhere because yes, it can be done in different animals without the hip turn. So, but at this level, we'll snap the hips all the way through. And switch the hands when they have if the hips snap.
Rear kick.
A little tiny bit of the knee coming forward before he kicks. So got a nice delivery of the kick, but just the presentation. Put something in front of that knee and make sure the knee doesn't come forward at all when you do that kick. There you go, nice. And the return. The kick went out nice and straight. So the kick had a nice straight delivery this way. You just want to make sure that the return is nice and straight also. And there we have it. Oh no, we got the blocks yet.
Hard downward.
Good, so hard blocks, we want to have those closed fists on.
Hard outward.
Same thing there, close the fist. Now, a little bit low, so wrist is a little low here. Want to get that up, wrist at eye level. I think she said hard outward and those were hard inwards.
Hard upward.
Okay, so we can't see it in the video here because it goes out of shot, but this arm here, if you can visualize, the hand is probably about here. And you want it about here so that the wrist is directly over it. The blocking area is right over the head there. So bring it up through the center. Make sure that's covering that picture frame there.
Hard inward.
There's the hard inward. Good. Again,
Outward extended.
Blocks up. Outward good. There we go. Okay, so that was really good. Sean had just a lot of really good stuff going on there. Of course, it's my job to find the bad stuff, so that's what I do, so we can make those things better. But Sean has just done a really great job, and I really expect to see some great things out of him in the future. And he's over in the UK, so I do hope that one day I can get over there, or he can get over here, and we can train together, because I want to train together with all you guys one day. So I am going to get this video up online, and I'm going to put go on site and put Sean up as a low yellow belt, because he definitely, without a doubt, deserves that belt. And then Shifu Liz will get that belt in the mail to Sean. So Sean, I think I need to get your physical address, so if you could email me and tell me, give me a mailing address, we'll get that out to you. So thank you again, Sean. For everyone watching, thank you for watching, and I hope that this has been useful. We're at 1 hour now. I hope you guys will notice that it's kind of the same mistakes, that you can now watch somebody else and see if you can pick out the things that I picked out, because you're going to see those things really common. Usually mistakes are not unique. Everyone kind of makes the same mistake, so you'll start to see these things over and over and start picking them out in each other. Everyone start putting up your videos, you know, maybe put up one technique videos and everyone can get on that and really zero in on a technique. And let's work together and make everyone good. Thank you very much.